Hi, I'm Gemma. I'm the founder of Culture Gem and I'm a cyber behavior and culture consultant. And joining me today is Justin. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you. So I'm going to ask you to give a little intro because I don't know how well known you are by the UK audience.
Awesome. So my name is Justin Merhoff. I'm in the US. I live in the state of Georgia, and I've been doing what's now called cybersecurity for 26 years. And I recently became aware of the importance of accessibility as it pertains to cybersecurity and beyond. And since then, I am the director of security at, full disclosure, I'm a director of security at a digital accessibility software and solutions company. But what it helped me learn was about the importance, and I've taken that to my own personal advocacy because it just makes sense. We're not really securing everyone when we thought we were. That was the biggest shock to me, and it's really been cool because I've really connected with you and others a lot in the UK, I would say, and I think that's because socially it's got a lot more support because of the social structure within the UK. So you have to give you have to give credit to that. And then I don't want to take too much of the time, but also the fact that the NCSC on GAD this year, May 18th, stated that accessibility is important within cybersecurity, and I 100% agree with them.
So this is our I think second conversation, right?
Yes.
And it's been driving me mad because somebody tagged me in something you put on LinkedIn about accessibility in cyber and was like, Gemma, what are your thoughts? And that was our first interaction, and it has been driving me absolutely insane of who that was and why we then became friends.
I think I forget her name, but it starts with M.
Is it Michaela?
Yes, it's Michaela.
Michaela from Cybility. So
yes.
You can thank Michaela from Cybility for joining us up together.
No, she's constantly, and even the ones that you're doing, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yes. I still see her around and present and tracking what's going on with this. So no, she was definitely the one that connected us.
Oh, I love Michaela, and Michaela, like you and I, can just talk forever about all of the awesome. Interesting things. So the reason that this is our second conversation is because the first conversation we had was not that long ago, and you've been running a series of LinkedIn Live events in accessibility and cyber. I'm going to give you the chance to pitch that.
So thank you. It's in its infancy, as well as the knowledge and awareness of accessibility and cybersecurity, I believe, is in its infancy, especially in the application of it to the solutions. But to your point, with the series, I'm doing every other Friday, so not this Friday, but the next, when this posts. But I'm trying to do a twice a month series, and I'm specifically making sure that I do one in the morning for me, 5 a.m., so that I can reach people in the UK and in Africa and in other locations, and not just be North America centric, which I believe, I'm not knocking, but I think a lot of talks are. So I'm trying to be a little bit more inclusive, and I'm open to doing other times if people suggest it. I just kind of guessed what the best times would be. And I also was trying to be aware of prayer time as well for some people, because I had it at another time and someone's like, that's probably not going to be the best time. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll change it. And so it might affect some. It's not recorded, but what the series is to bring awareness. I went 25 years without knowing about this, and I think I want to be positive, and I think we can change this. So I don't want to be this is a cultural thing too, but like a Debbie Downer, like a negative person, but it is an issue, and I think we need the awareness of it.
Absolutely. And from a conversation that we had recently, you mentioned that you didn't know you were on a cyber accessibility path, but
Right.
everything you've done has led to this moment of realization, and now you're advocating the way for accessibility in cyber. And I think actually you were talking about this before that NCSE piece that you mentioned around like the need for it. So if you wouldn't mind, can you share a bit of that journey that led you to where we are today?
Yeah, no, I will do that. So I do think it starts even with me being a kid. I think coming from, and hopefully this is a cultural relevance, but I was in the foster care system in the US, and I was also in a group home, and maybe I'm going to start crying, but I think that allowed me to interact with a bunch of different people. And I've never really, until recently, I've never really been in one location. I've always been moving. So I think that gave me the soft skills. And then I think the military, starting at 17, definitely helped me. And one thing that I learned from the military, which I didn't even realize as well until I got into college after I did 20 years, was understanding that I was more of a servant leader than a traditional top-down leader, because even though I was in an organization that is more of a traditional top-down, just because of the structure of it, I learned the importance of team. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn, but once I was in a leadership position, that my success was my team's success was my success. And I really learned that. And also understanding that you can't do it all alone. You need to have connections to, the person that leads the chow hall. If your team's going to be working late at night, running cable to get the network up, you need to feed them, right? So learning those soft skills, I think, really helped me with that empathy part. And I was not exuding it. I was doing it, but not understanding that it was guiding me here. I mean, until last year, my goal was to be a CISO before I was 50, just as a personal goal. Like, I understand, it's not all in titles. If you're doing the function, then you're essentially that. But we also do live in a culture of titles and having goals, and that was a personal goal of mine. Not understanding that, I think my whole 25 years wasn't to be into cyber. It was to help people within cyber translate why accessibility is important to us and try to bridge the gap so that both of our industries are working together, because they need to. Because without accessibility, you're not secure. Not everyone is I'm going to get hype. Not everyone is secure. And when I learned that, it literally like lit a firecracker, because I've wanted to advocate for something my whole life. Like, I really wanted to advocate for foster children. And it's really cool because the people that I've met in this industry also have been told they can't do something.
Yeah.
And I was constantly told. I think that's the other thing. I think we just found out what it was. I think why it's so important to me is we're literally telling people that they can't be in cybersecurity and they can't be secure. And it's something we can fix. It's not a house that needs to be rebuilt. It's code. Like, okay, it's going to cost you some money. Do you want them to use your tool or not? Right? So I think that's what it was. I think tapping into that, like constantly being told you can't do something. We're in the industry of hacking. Like even, I'm not trying to sidetrack, but even when I'm mentoring and not talking specifically about accessibility and, you're asked for like, what's the career path to get into cybersecurity? I hate to break it to you, there isn't one. All of those are opinions. Even the one I'm going to give you, it's based on my opinion and what I have exposed myself to. I love to mentor, and I'm not mentoring to get this information, but a byproduct of mentoring is I get to learn from other people's experiences to where I can now share that with other people. I never used Upwork to get a job, but I know people that have done it, and I can share that to other people.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know where exactly I was going with this, and we talked about my brain dropping out, and here you go. It just happened.
So my first cyber job was through Upwork.
Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I am one of those people. So we joked literally just before I hit record. I said to you, we are the same person. And it's
Right.
so crazy that we have, thanks to Michaela, have found each other. And thanks to our desire to do what's right for people, we found each other. But I also grew up in the foster care system, and like I'm on this mission. When I was on your series last week, I said, let's do this for the NANs. You're doing it for people, right? It's about the people, and I think that's why we kind of in a virtual world get on so well, is that we are so passionate about the people.
Can I add to your NANS thing?
Yeah.
Because I just told that concept to someone else, because they're coming up with an idea, and we'll talk about that offline because it's their own personal idea. I don't want to share it yet. But we're going to be NANs, right? Like I'm going to be I'm a granddad right now. So, but I'm aging. I'm 44. So that's another thing that I think it's hard for me to understand when there is sometimes some pushback about accessibility. Is, let's just be clear. I think you might have mentioned it, or you have in the past, is our industry is still with its efforts, we are still a heavily middle-aged white male led, right? Bingo, I'm one of them. But if we're not open to, we could still exist and be diverse, but we have to be open to change. And they're going to be aging too. Like you're going to lose your jobs if you lose your sight and you're a digital forensics expert, you're going to lose your job. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
None of the tools are accessible. You will no longer be able to do digital forensics. Your career is done.
Yeah.
That should scare people.
No, I am absolutely with you on that. And I think, I guess what I try and talk about, and I don't know if that comes across out in the world, so apologies to everybody if that doesn't come across in the world, but I think quite often we assume that we already know what we need in terms of accessibility, but we don't, because that's assuming that you've had this accessibility need and there has been some kind of option for you out in the world, which absolutely is not the case. So we're talking undiagnosed individuals. What is quite often forgotten is short-term disabilities, or if I was having a conversation with one of my good friends the other day, and I was talking about long COVID, and actually there's been some stuff in the news this week around the people that are still affected by long COVID and what that effect looks like, and that is lack of concentration, difficulty communicating. And so in that moment where like COVID was a new thing, like nobody knew it was coming. And so 3 years ago, nobody cared about COVID. And then we are faced with long COVID. So we're thrown into so many worlds of transformation and new ways of working. And then we're affected with memory issues and communication issues and brain fog. And like you said, words dropping out of your head, that is what's happening for people with long COVID. And so what is the accessibility option there when you are all of a sudden thrown into a world that you have never had to navigate before? Like you're saying, if I lost my sight, I would lose my job. Absolutely. And so I do try and shout about that as much as I can. Is not just the long-term diagnosis that of people who have been navigating that world and adapting to technology uses over time. There are those short-term or new diagnosis that we then need to work that out.
Right. And I think the point you made in our other talk, and you said, and I was listening to something this morning and it clicked, is yes, you can make things accessible, but it's just like security. The frameworks and everything are going to get you there, right? And that's going to be a start, because that's going to be where everyone starts, right? There's no way around that. But the goal of things just working, like when we were talking about maybe AI helping, is, but what about for the undiagnosed? Like, how do you detect those things, right? And hopefully that's optional in the future. Like, hey, but even then, like, would you do that option? Like, I don't know how to solve that, but I think it's just, we need to be making sure that we're working on it. That's the biggest thing, because it's not even trained, like, not even talking about making LMSs accessible, like learning management systems, and alike for cybersecurity, is we need to be teaching the people coming into our industry and current leaders how we secure everyone, because our idea of users is not right. We're not thinking about everyone. I'm telling you, because for 25 years I didn't think about it. Not to the extent that I am now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely with you on that. And I think one of the use cases that I was discussing with you and on your series was putting in like the authentication code for somebody who has any kind of accessibility challenge can be really, really difficult. And so we've changed the goalpost in like the last couple of years around multi-factor authentication. One, we keep changing the terminology, so it's 2FA, MFA, and now we're talking two-step verification. So we're adding complexity into a situation that didn't need to be added. And then, sorry, we can't hear you.
That's a really good point. Is that security is also, we have to understand. I got excited and I didn't take the mic off. Is we don't think about the cognitivity. We're asking people to understand something and write and sign policies that you need a degree almost to understand. Thank you, Apple, for doing a thumbs up during our video. I really need to turn that thing off. It's annoying.
I mean, that was a cool thing. I've not seen that before.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. And but I also need to do it myself. Like, the policies that I have right now, because of the frameworks, in my opinion, how do you navigate? Because if you take certain verbiage out, it kind of negates certain things.
Yeah.
But then, because of accessibility, it got me back to the basics. They need to understand what you're telling them to do.
Yeah.
If they don't understand it, they shouldn't be signing it, but they're going to do it anyways because it's
a
part of their
requirement of the job.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm absolutely with you on that. I'm just gonna finish off that thought that I was having around MFA, and then there's something else that I wanted to mention, so I have to try and remember that's what I was going to mention. No, I loved your enthusiasm, and I saw you get visibly excited by what we were saying then. But like the process of, there's a second factor of authentication, whether it's multi-step, multi-factor, two-factor, whatever we're going to call it, has evolved as technology has evolved. So it used to be like potentially you've got a text message or an SMS that said type in this code, right? And you've got 10 minutes in order to do that, or you're gonna that's
time period,
right? And now then it moved to a push notification on your phone. You're just going to press that and it'll go. But then people got notification fatigue and they were just pressing stuff. So then it was authenticating without them even realizing. And then we got to a type in this number thing, and you've got 30 seconds to transpose that number. So why have we gone from 10 minutes to 30 seconds of being able to type in that number? And I understand the security aspect of it,
right?
But accessibility wise, that's terrible. And I didn't realize how terrible that was until one of my staff, who is in her 60s, couldn't type in that number in 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And there are so many things, like you say, from the mentoring, you get to learn from other people's experiences, life experiences, challenges. And so it is critical in our world to just keep having conversations with people. And I feel incredibly privileged that I have the option to do that. And I take every opportunity to talk to people that I possibly can.
Yeah. And then what about everyone who has dyscalculia? I'm sure they're not fans of this technology, regardless if it's 30 seconds. That's not enough time for them to process that.
I mean, I don't know how well known this is in the world, but I read numbers the wrong way around. And so I always joke, like, I can't play bingo because the processing time is so long that they've moved on to the next number. Now, I'm not in a world where I play bingo that often, so it doesn't really affect me in that sense. And my number processing time normally is set on my own schedule, but in that 30 seconds, it's not my schedule, it's some app's schedule. The other point that I wanted to discuss, and it's something you said around culture, is like, I'm currently working with a global company, and I'm doing some security gap analysis and looking at their training accessibility needs and things like that. And I have caveated and logged it as a risk that everything that I recommend or assess is based on my own cultural and life experiences, which may not translate. And before we hit record, you and I just had like the longest conversation about how does things work in the UK versus the US. We were talking about the prosecution system, like selling your house, like just so many different.
Who can walk on your yard, if they're allowed to or not.
Yeah. So that is based on my own bias of my own personal experiences and my life experiences. So I have to caveat and raise a risk that anything that I recommend to you is based on my learned experiences or my own personal or cultural experiences.
And same with auditors too.
Where's that in a risk register?
I don't know. And also too with auditors, like, that's another thing is like, yes, you have, I know maybe this is a side note, but like, yes, you have to trust in your third party auditor, but they're people too, right? And so they need to be willing to work with you, and you need to be willing to work with them and understand your environment. I know that's not about accessibility, but you know what I mean? It's like, and that's another thing too that I'm doing with my auditor, which we're about to start soon, is they've never been through an audit with a company like ours. And I even told her, the lead auditor, that, even the policies need to be accessible, the training and everything, and, giving her an idea of this is probably a different audit than you've done before. Yeah. Even though you're looking at security, you're going to have to look at it from a different lens.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when that's coming to be like business as usual out in the world. That let's look at the accessibility side of things. Right. But you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think like to the outside world observing you and I and our interactions out in the public, sometimes it kind of maybe comes across that we're fighting or we're just debating with each other. But actually, like, I think you and I, when we get together, whether that's typing comments at each other on LinkedIn or during the 2 conversations that we've ever had, like you inspire thought by things you're saying, and I either want to challenge your thought or validate your thought, and I think you add your experience to my thought, and vice versa. Like, we were having a conversation the other day around keyboards. And I use that example all the time.
Oh my gosh, I love that example. I never thought about that. I freaking never thought about it. And now the way that you broke it down as well, because if you're, and I literally, when you said that, like you took me back to what grade was I in? Fourth or fifth grade in America. Like I didn't even process that. They probably taught me that. I just didn't remember. It's just so ingrained that I just process and know that.
Yeah.
But that's a learned behavior. I had to learn that.
Absolutely. And for the benefit of people who haven't heard me say this, like
Oh,
a keyboard, like if you everyone look down at your keyboard, like in this lesson from Gemma, all the letters are uppercase. And if you ask somebody who may not have the same cognitive ability as you to type their own name, they will type, say if you're typing Justin, you'll use the J key, and a lowercase j will appear on your screen. And then you have to then go on and move on to type the rest of your letters, but there are no lowercase letters for you to be able to do that.
not even cognitive, cultural. If someone like in the United States, if they were Amish and they made the transition to not being Amish and they've never seen a keyboard before, how are they supposed to know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And most people know that I've spent a lot of time in Turkey over the last 18 months or so, and culturally that like people don't have, like they don't have smartphones. Well, I mean, the younger ones do, but like older people don't know
Right.
what WhatsApp is, and they don't understand about installing updates, and they definitely don't have access to a computer. And they are still in the world where potentially they're going to like an internet cafe to do something.
That's another thing I think there's a lack of is the understanding to teach people how to balance their own personal risk, right? If they're okay with going to a site, just go do it securely and use this stuff. Because one thing that I've seen in secure, and I'm not, some people might take this the wrong way, but not everyone is going to do like high sensitive level security at their own personal home with their family.
Yeah,
It's just not,
absolutely.
it's not usable security. As regardless of how secure it is, it's not usable.
Yeah, yeah.
So until it's usable, make your products more usable, then yes, they will use them and that will be a part of the thing.
Mm,
But until they're usable, like I don't think my grandmother would ever use proton mail,
mm,
right? But
yeah.
everyone in security would say that that's probably the more secure one to go with, right? As an opinion.
Mm.
But is everyone going to be using it? No, they're not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know whether I should out myself, but there are a lot of things that I'm just like, that's hard. Like, and I'm a security advocate, and so there's things that I don't do where I'm like, like, what's the attack surface? What is the risk to me?
No.
And I can make that assessment
Yes.
based on my knowledge, but the
Right.
average person may not be able to
No.
understand that at all.
So teaching how to do that, just like when we're teaching our children or teaching someone new that to how to deal with a problem when they face it, when they have adversity at school or something, how to do it. That's the same thing.
Mm.
You know, how would you do this? Like, are you like, is the information you're doing even needing to be on that sensitive? It might not need to be that level, right?
Yeah.
But then if you're building a new app and you want to, get some funding for it, yeah, you might want to secure that information a little bit more than if, your ideas for your vlog series, right?
Mm. Yeah. Um, so the ongoing theme across of this series, well, I mean, the series is called Cyber Awareness Month with Gemma and friends, and so like we have absolutely plummeted and flown through Cyber Awareness Month.
Right.
Um, I think you did your series start during Cyber Month?
Yeah, I wanted to do it. I should have planned it better. I'm not the best marketer. I wanted to align it more. Next year's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I'm going to probably do a lot more
Mm.
pushes with different things. But yeah, it did come from that. But one thing I want to add, and you and I have talked about this, is also the awareness of when we're doing all this awareness for the month, that you're making sure that your content is accessible to everyone. And sometimes alt text isn't needed. If it's a decorative, just say that it's decorative so they can get past it and get to the true content. But if you're putting content in the image on LinkedIn, as an example, as an event, and that event information's nowhere in the post, do you want more people to come to your event? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's benefits in doing this, but I think you made the point, or I heard it in a podcast, is when this will be done is that when it's just a thing, like when people post images on Instagram that they just put in alt text. That's not the case right now. You have to do it by choice, but hopefully with the goal of doing that. So I did my own little guerrilla campaign and created a hashtag, and I've been providing alt text for images because not everyone's consuming it if you don't. I mean, you know that.
Because it's not easy, right? And like you say, you have to make that choice.
Right. And you have to be aware.
Yeah. And so another technology failure, but which there are many. So the question that I've been asking every guest, and I just, as you were talking then, I realized that we were supposed to do 4 episodes of this, and I think you're number 12 during Cyber Month. And so firstly, thank you for volunteering and hitting me up and saying, hey, let's have a chat. But yeah, so the question that I've asked everybody is, if Cyber Awareness Month was a genie in a bottle and you could make one wish, what would that be?
Make every solution in cybersecurity accessible for users and people getting into the industry.
Don't disagree with you. Yeah,
that's an easy one.
Yeah. Well, it's not
for me, because of my experience.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's an easy question to answer, and I'm just going to do that thing where I'm going to say things that sounds like I'm arguing with you, but I'm absolutely not arguing with you. I absolutely agree, but I don't necessarily think that's an easy thing for people who haven't considered this to do.
It's not easy.
Absolutely not. It is tricky, and like as most people know, I developed a product that took me 2.5 years to get it right. It was, and those challenges were things that just didn't really exist, and there was no documentation or ideas. So there was a huge amount of research and development went into that, because there isn't enough information out in the world. But I think my little top tip that I'm going to give is, like, if you're building something and you've got a focus group or a working group or even a market research group, make them representative of the demographic of the world, and not just people who look and smell like you. And it's that simple, right? That's how you're going to make this world accessible for people.
Right. Because if you're getting specific focus groups, you literally are already identifying that you're not inclusive. You're selling to a specific base. You're not open to anyone. I mean, that's your choice as a business, but you're making that choice.
Absolutely. Don't make that choice.
Oh.
Make the right choice. Do it for the nans and the foster.
Do it for the nans and the future grand nans, or whatever. What's the grandfather equivalent of a nan?
I mean, there are many in England. So we have like pops.
Pops.
Granddad.
Okay, granddad.
Yeah, but I don't think there's much.
It doesn't ring like nan does. It's different. Yeah.
So my life experience and my cultural thing is the grandfather role in my family chain doesn't have a title. So, for example, I'm trying to come up with a name that is not my grandparents' name.
My grandkids call me Bop. B-O-P.
Okay.
It's just what they picked.
I think the grandfather side of things is probably a bit more playful, but oh God, I'm not going to out my daughter, and I'm just frantically trying to come up with old people names. So like in my family we had like Nanny Sheila,
Okay.
and so that it was like title first name,
Right.
whereas the grandfather role was like
Just their name.
Frank.
Okay.
Like, so it's Nanny, Sheila, and Frank.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's how it worked in my life. But yeah, my daughter, she now refers to my dad by his name just to piss him off. So she, she'll say like David, and he's like, "Don't you first name at me." But she's like 22 and gets away with it.
Right.
But she just, I think, God, if my mum's watching this, which she probably isn't. So my parents were like nasty nanny and granddad, and she only had one set of grandparents, so it was nasty nanny and granddad.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, she referred to my grandparents as her, like Nanny Sheila and Frank.
Right. Right.
So yeah, she had nasty nanny and Nanny Sheila.
That's so funny. Nasty nanny. I like that one. That could be a t-shirt.
I wonder if it still is, but in a different context. If it already is a t-shirt.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to go there. I didn't think about that.
Worn by the same people who wear like sweatpants with like glitter writing across their backside.
No, I'm good. No, thanks.
Justin, it has been an absolute pleasure laughing, joking,
likewise,
going through the emotions with you. And yeah, thanks for being me, but in the US.
Of course. And likewise, and I'm always, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm always open to feedback, honestly.
So I'm sure, obviously I will tag you in everywhere that it's possible to tag you in the threads, and I'm sure you're welcome to advocating and talking cyber accessibility things with anybody who has that desire, as am I.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care, Justin.
Thank you.